Good afternoon. Native American Heritage Month Employee Program. Today we will be sharing a different perspective of American Native heritage, a contemporary one that many of us probably haven't ever considered before. We will hear first from Dr. Les Writing-In with the University of Texas at Arlington about their recent Native Now exhibit, which provided a window into the modern, diverse, and ever-changing lives of Native people, especially with those families who've left reservations for urban centers like Dallas-Fort Worth due to the federal Indian relocation program in the 1950s and 60s. Then, TCU's Dr. Wendy Sierra will share how she's using technology, not only perspective of the Native, Ondawa language, and I do believe I mispronounced that, but also teach it to others using video game software. While our program today is focused on Natives in contemporary life, the long past culture of traditions of music and dance will still be honored with performances from Indigenous ACE and the Indigenous Cultures Institutes located in San Marcos, Texas. But before we do get started, I would like to introduce Renee Tillis, Chief Communication Officer, who will share remarks from city leadership.
Well, thanks to our employees and our special guests who are going to be sharing part of the program and their knowledge with us today. On behalf of City Manager David Cook and the Assistant City Managers, a few may be popping in, but others did have legitimate activities and stuff on their schedule this afternoon. Welcome to the City of Fort Worth's annual observance of Native American Heritage Month, which runs through the month of November. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy workdays to explore the lives, traditions, and contributions of our Native people in our modern world. It's a time to celebrate the traditions, languages, and stories of Native Americans, Alaskan Native, Native Hawaiian, and affiliated island communities. This month, we celebrate the culture and heritage of these remarkable Texans who will deeply enrich the quality and character of our city. Growing up near Ruidoso, New Mexico, which is just a few miles from the Mescalero Apache tribes, the sights and sounds of powwows and the Native culture are not unfamiliar to me and really do warm my heart. Ahead of us today, we'll have an amazing program that will educate and entertain us all. But before we go any further, I want to show gratitude. It's important for us to lift each other up as fellow employees to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee and all the city employees who volunteered their time and talent to make this program possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee Tillis. Now it's time to begin our presentation. I would like to welcome our first presenter, Dr. Les Writing-In.
All right, thank you for this invitation. It's an honor to be here. I was asked to speak about the recent art installation at the Fort Worth Arts Council called Native Now. Has anyone been able to go over there to see it? So that's a shame. We need to get the word out a little bit better about it next time it comes out. It was a wonderful art installation that presented a contemporary light on mostly urban Native Americans. And I am going to show a little bit about that installation here in a little bit. It actually closed this past Saturday, and but we do have plans, hopefully, to have it come back in the near future. So Native Now is an exhibit. That picture needs to change. That was quite some years ago. But there's a little picture of it. It's an exhibit that focuses on contemporary Native American living, most likely in the city. Now, this is a recent phenomenon. Before 1950, very few Native Americans lived in the cities. Today, we have about 3.5 identified Native Americans in the United States, and about 2/3 of them are urban. So what happened? What caused this shift in the demographics? How did this happen? Well, I look around, and most of us here were not around in the 1950s, all right? Or some of us were just maybe being born during that time period. But that was the period of relocation, which was the solution of the time of solving the Indian problem. The relocation period worked directly with termination policies that were set by the United States government. And termination was a period to remove federal oversight of Native American tribes. Now, you have to be a little bit clever about this. Relocation and termination was more than just removing federal oversight. It was really a story about dismantling sovereignty to end the trust responsibilities with 374 tribes in the United States. Now, when you go to Native Now, you walk in and you're greeted with this table. And you see the little flip through this, all right? This is what I call the relocation table. And you're invited to open up this book. And it's actually a wonderful archive of photos, Dallas Morning News articles, and Bureau of Indian Affairs pamphlets from this time period, the 1950s. There are many stories in this book that you are invited to read. You see, the United States was enjoying a post-World War II economic boom in the 1950s. Combine this with a strong supportive sentiment for our veterans during this time. And a little side bit, you may or may not know that Native Americans enlisted at a higher rate than any other minority per capita during World War II. But this economic boom was not reaching the reservations. And there were two reservations in particular that had the attention of the United States government, the Hopi and the Navajo. These reservations were starving, devastated by recent winters. So the Rehabilitation Act of 1950 directly provided a mechanism for the Hopi and Navajo to move to the cities. And it worked. But that was just two reservations. There were many others that had similar conditions. The BIA at the time thought it would be best to expand this effort, but they needed someone to do it. And they found a person. His name was Dylan Myers. He had some time on his hands. After all, he just moved the Japanese people to internment camps during World War II, and that was a huge success. So the BIA got to work and started to make pamphlets like the ones you see in the book. I'm actually going to go to slide D first. So this is one of the pamphlets. You can see there's stick figures here. The writing says, "Stuck in your teepee, a way out through relocation services." So Dylan Myers and the BIA painted a picture of the reservations as a wasteland. It was frivolous in his eyes to spend money to improve the reservations, as it would only encourage Indians to stay. Thus, these pamphlets depicted Indians as stick figures with the messaging that you see. I like the heap a lot of living there. This was the promise. So the BIA sent folks to the reservations, some BIA types, to find able-bodied Native American men. And this was their pitch. This was the promise. The steps to success for Native Americans if and only if they come to the city. You'll find work. You'll get good school. You'll be able to send your children to good schools. We'll pay you for that first month, $40 a week, $10 per child for up to 1 month, all right? So you can see the steps to prosperity here. Desire for change, sincerity, careful planning, good work habits, all the way up, better housing, better jobs. But what happened? So we have to remember, like most Native Americans during this time, they never left the reservation, or maybe I should say the rural places that they were at, unless they were fighting in World War II, unless they enlisted. They never stayed in a hotel. Many never ate out. Many never really worked in that capitalistic sense that we know as work, right? Many never rode a bus. Many never rode a train. So upon their arrival in the cities, they found no work. If they did, it was a dead-end job. They stayed at the poorest motels in the poorest parts of town, maybe the local YMCA. Their entire existence was most likely in two bags. And that ticket was a one-way ticket. It was voluntary. You didn't have to go, but it was a one-way ticket. Over 100,000 Native Americans moved. So relocation was the pinnacle of the termination period. Most of the Indians, move the Indians out of the reservations. You'll be able then to get rid of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, get rid of tribal governance, get rid of the res. Ultimately, thinking long-term about this, you'll be able to get the land then. So let's go back to the uprooting. Dallas did become one of those relocation centers, and it was the perfect distance for a lot of the Oklahoma tribes. Over 20,000 Native Americans moved to Dallas during relocation, representing 90 tribes. And what you see here are some of the backlash articles that was printed in the Dallas Morning News. I got to hand it to the folks who put this together. I was unable to find some of these articles. So they must have gone to some of their friends, families that were here during this time to cut these articles out. And this presents a real story of how the city of Dallas, Fort Worth wasn't really affected because most of the folks that were moving in during relocation from the reservations were moving to Oak Cliff. And so this was a Dallas issue at the time. And these were some of the articles that came out. So hats off to the person that donated these articles. It really presents a rich picture of what the thinking was at the time. More articles. As you can see, the Dallas Morning News was framing this as a problem because they were now competing for the resources for the citizens of Dallas. Now, as I said, these folks were starting to settle on Oak Cliff. Sure, many found a means to return home. Many did go back to the reservations, but some stayed. And as more stayed, the political clout started. At home, back in the reservations or the rural environments that they came from, new generations that were being born now had an auntie or an uncle in Dallas. In 1971, the Dallas Intertribal Center was born. And I believe was the second center, someone can correct me on that, but the second center of its kind in the United States. It offered job training and medicine to this new urban and growing Native population. By 1975, termination ended. A new policy of self-determination started. And that really brings us to today. Tribal governance is strong. Tribal schools are stronger than ever. But sure, problems certainly do remain. There's still no banking in Indian land. No mortgages, no lending. There's some severe justice issues, water issues. And in the cities, only grants and donations can support the Dallas Intertribal Center, which is now called, does anyone know the new name of it? Texas Native Health is the new name of it. So thank you. So what you now see are really two homes. What happened is that relocation expanded Indian country to the cities. And the rest of the slides present the stories of those who may have been affected, voices of today. These voices would never have existed otherwise. This is a desk of a Two-Spirit artist. Notice the book Project 562 by Makita Wilbur. It's sitting, leaning against the wall there. It is a highly recommended photogenic celebration of contemporary Native America. This is the MMIW activist table. MMIW stands for Murdered and Missing Indian Women. Just one of the many contemporary issues that we as a community face. It's a justice issue of who investigates and prosecutes the missing and murdered Native peoples. You can see that this activist has found on her desk, his desk, whoever it might be. So, and then also a large poster of Native American Heritage Month, which is at the end of October here in Dallas. This is the close-up of one of the desks. Notice the Kill the Indian, Save the Man on the left side. That was a phrase started by R.H. Pratt, who founded Carlisle Boarding School. This is the earlier chapter. The Indian schools are an earlier chapter that we're not going to talk about. It predated termination and relocation. But this person on this desk simply says, we're not going to forget. We will never forget those who were lost during that dark period. And this is the full picture of the entire exhibit. It was just a wonderful, wonderful exhibit. I'm so happy that we're able to do this. Samson Dewey, who's the president of the Native American Student Association, Dr. Leah McCurdy, Christy Willis, Stephen Silva, they all made this exhibit possible. And of course, Veronica Villegas, I think she's here somewhere. She's been wonderful and supportive, as has been the whole city of Fort Worth for giving us this important voice. Today, I want to speak real quickly about UT Arlington. Our Native American student group is the longest running college Native American student group in Texas. Many of our students and their families were affected by relocation, and they studied at UTA. In fact, our powwow, which is now going to be the 28th annual powwow, was really started off as a failed softball game. But it's March 2nd now. It's one of the largest powwows in the DFW area. It's going to be on our campus, the Maverick Activity Center. I wish I had more of these flyers, but I'll leave this one. Maybe you can take a picture of it. But it's March 2nd, the first Saturday in March on our campus. TCU and UNT has also emerged and now part of this huge, thriving community, this Native American community in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So with that, I want to thank Veronica and the city and you guys for allowing me to speak today. It's been a wonderful pleasure. And I now go to the Dr. Wendy Sierra from Texas Christian University. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee Tellis. It's now time to begin our presentation. I would like to welcome our first presentator. Oh, my apologies. Thank you, Dr. Les, for writing in for challenging us all on how we think about Native people and their contributions and impact to our modern world. I'd now like to invite Dr. Wendy Sierra, a gaming, as in video games, professor in the lecture to share with the fascinating work and native language presentation.
Thank you. Segu swakweku. Wugasanuni chi weswagedod. Dr. Wendy Sierra niyugyats. Shirley niyudiats agzot. Oh, I think one of them got left out. We left out my mommy. Sherry niyudiats agnol. Anayodeaga nii. Ahnoa niwagitalod. Gaya degenhas ukwewe. Awesome. So whenever I'm talking about my language game, obviously I like to open with my introduction in Oneida. I will say I never fault anyone for saying Oneida wrong, because that's not our real name anyway. Our name is actually Anayodeaga. Oneida is, as best as the etymology can be figured out, a mispronunciation through French. And that's how we get to Oneida. So that's not actually our name. Awesome. And I know Les made a comment about having an old picture, and like, that's not what color my hair is. I actually just recently went and got my tribal ID redone, and they had to take a new picture, and I begged them, like, can we put down that my hair color is blue? And they said no, and I was like, but it is. They didn't accept that. They didn't take that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Oneida language. There will be an audience participation part of this. I'll teach you a couple words in Oneida. A little bit about the importance of native language reclamation and why I work in this area. And then I'm going to show you my game. Throughout this presentation, if you see watercolor art, that was done by our concept artist, Dawn Dark Mountain. And if you see digital art, it was done by Jinda Sun, who did the art for the game. So just a little bit about Oneida Nation. I won't ask for a show of hands, but I will say in my experience, unless you grew up in Wisconsin or New York or spent any time there, you probably haven't heard of Oneida. But we are traditionally from New York, sort of up into Toronto, that area. The nation is currently split into three. So there's a band in Canada, Oneida of the Thames. There's a band still in New York, Oneida Indian Nation, and then my family is part of Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. I find it's more common that people may have heard of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy or the Iroquois Confederacy. So if you've heard of that, we are one of the 6 members of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and we are matrilineal. So that's why I give my grandmother and my mother's name in my introduction. Traditionally, that's how you would situate me in community, by knowing my nation, and then by knowing my clan, and then finally by knowing my mother and my grandmother. So just a little map. The dark purple on there is traditionally the Haudenosaunee territory. The lowest parts of that are the Tuscarora. The wampum belt there, the 4 rectangles, and the center tree is the symbol of the Confederacy. This is when we were 5 nations, and I like to joke that we had such a good logo that when the Tuscarora joined, we were like, sorry, you'd mess up the symmetry, we can't change it. Yeah, Haudenosaunee means people of the longhouse, and that's a picture of a longhouse, so that was a traditional dwelling. This sometimes comes as a shock, particularly when I, do programs for elementary school kids or something, and they think that all Native Americans lived in teepees. No. My family that lived in New York and Canada did not sleep in a teepee. You wouldn't do that up there. So Haudenosaunee means people of the longhouse, and what we are trying to signal with that is that we're a people of community, right? The longhouse is a multi-family, multi-generational dwelling, and if you have a strong longhouse, you have a strong community. So keep rolling. Just a little bit about the Oneida language. I'm definitely not going to read all of this to you, but I think it's interesting to point out when we move to looking at the language game. Oneida, I've heard it described as a language of verbs verbing verbs, and that's very true. If you look at some of these verbs on here, asa jo wale, you should wash your hands, right? So we stick the subject, we stick the verb, the direct object, right? The tense, all of that goes on to the verb. So you can have a sentence that's 1 word in Oneida and, 10 words in English, right? Another cool thing I personally think about Oneida is that in English we only have singular and plural, right? Me and we. Me is 1, we is 2 or more. In Oneida, we also recognize dual. So there's me and you, and then there's all of us, right? And those are distinct categories. I also think it's kind of fun in English. We don't have inclusive, exclusive we. So like if I say to you, we won the lottery, you don't know if I mean we like all of us in this room won the lottery, if I mean we, like me and my family won the lottery. But in Oneida, those are 2 different we's. Makes a difference whether we includes the people that you're talking to or not. So I think that's fun to highlight. This is just a quick sample of how it looks. I will say I am very much still a language learner because Oneida is a very different language than English. But this is just all of the different ways, only in the present tense, only with a singular direct object that you would do the word to eat. So gadakuni, zadakuni, ladakuni, yudakuni, wadakuni, diadakuni, jadakuni, yadakuni, guadakuni, yagyadaguni, dwadakuni, zwadakuni, ludakuni, kundakuni, yagwadakuni. That's just like 1 tense. That's just the subjective. I think when you break it all down, just looking at the pronouns, each verb can have something like 26 different forms. So it's a difficult language. I want to teach you just a couple words. I think we're just going to do the top 3 over here. So I'll say the word, I'll pronounce it, and then I'm going to ask everybody to say it with me. So the first one is up at the top. It is seguli. It is seguli. So try to say it with me. Seguli. There you go. The second one is goodbye, because if you know how to say hello, you should know how to say goodbye. Makes sense. And that is nugiwa. So nugiwa. Yeah. And then the last one is thank you very much. I was actually just speaking with someone the other day who asked how to say thank you. The goal at the end of this is the very much. And I've never heard people say it conversationally without the goal. Like it almost feels a little rude to not say thank you very much, to just say thank you. But that is yawago. Yawago. Awesome. I'll pronounce these last ones, but I'll just keep moving because I want to be mindful of all of our time. So seguli is a very informal way to say hello. Skanagolga literally translates into do you have peace? And then the answer to that is almost always skanagol. Like you never say that you don't have peace. Technically, that would be da skanagol. This one always throws me because I learned Russian first. And so in Oneida, da is no, and in Russian, da is yes. Throws me for a loop. So why is the language important? Oneida, Wisconsin has about 20,000 members. I think when you add in all of the others, there are maybe 40,000 Oneidas total. So we're a smaller nation. Beyond that, the number of first language speakers, I think, is fewer than 20. The number of fluent speakers is fewer than 200. So why preserve the language? Why keep it moving? Well, I think the most important thing is that the language and the culture are often seen as interchangeable. You can't have one without the other. And there's a lot of belief amongst Oneidas, and I think amongst a lot of Native communities, that when you translate our concepts, our ideas, our stories into English, something gets lost. So the only way to really know the story is to know it in the language, which makes saving the language crucially important. I won't talk too long about why a lot of Oneida people don't speak our language, but I think it follows a lot of historical beats that you might have heard. So obviously the residential schools were a big part of this. The residential schools were meant to take away people's culture and people's language. For my nation, we had a number of people specifically who were sent to Carlisle Indian School. So that was sort of the first big break in the language. I think that also there was a thought at a point in time that not teaching kids the language would help them succeed, would help them assimilate, would help them do well in school, would help them do the things that they needed to do to survive. The work to revitalize the language for Oneida has been going on since the 30s. So some of the first recordings that we have are from the 30s, from that Works Progress Administration funding that we got. In the 60s, we started a collaboration with UW Green Bay, part of which ultimately resulted in the dictionary that we have. Language revitalization program began in '96. We got teacher training grants in 2006, and we started the Dehadu Immersion Language Nest in 2019. 2019 being an auspicious year to start something as a school program, but interestingly, because of the pandemic, that immersion program moved a lot of its programming online. And so now there was this explosion of resources that were available on the internet that weren't available before. That's a picture of their Facebook page for the Language Nest. In my own family, we were part of a removal effort. This is my grandmother. When she was very young, our family moved from Green Bay to Milwaukee, and my great-grandmother stopped speaking Oneida to her younger kids, refused to, because she thought that it would help them succeed in schools. So in working on the game that I'm about to talk about, my daughter is the first young child in our family to speak Oneida since this. My game is called A Strong Fire. You can play it. It's online at astrongfire.com. It does play best on a tablet or a laptop, but feel free to pull it up on your phone if you want. It just won't, it won't turn to be in landscape mode, so that makes it a little tricky. One of the things that I want to highlight on this slide that we did throughout the game is try to sprinkle references that Oneida people would recognize even if other people did not, because that's one of the ways that we're trying to signal to Oneida people that this game is for you, right? If we explain everything, then it feels like the game is not for you. So I'll just highlight real quick, between the word A Strong Fire on the game screen there are those two little like half circles. Those are sky domes, and that's a traditional design representing the sky world. And we've got all sorts of just like little visual touches like that sprinkled throughout the game to try to convey that message that this is for you. So the game starts out with an interactive narrative. It's a creation story. So it's the story of Sky Woman coming to Earth and creating Turtle Island. You can listen to it in either mixed English Oneida or in fully Oneida. And this is just an example. Like in the English version, this is like a paragraph. And in the Oneida version, it's a sentence. So the game was made with an NEH grant. We got $100,000 to make this game, and it was a collaboration between a game design studio, a group of elders who were advising me. We created mentorship with this game, so we had an established Oneida artist working with a young Oneida artist. We had an established Stockbridge composer working with a young Oneida composer. So we tried to create capacity wherever we could throughout the process of building this game. This is an example of how if you click on the word that's in Oneida, you'll get a little pop-up box that tells you what the word means. Along the way, we try to work in some little moments of interactivity. So this is when Sky Woman is falling down from Skyworld, and you click on the tobacco and the strawberries to bring those down to Earth. That's part of our traditional story. One of the things that was a big point of discussion was what words we should put in here to try to teach people. So there are 8 Oneida words. Again, Oneida being a verb-based language and English being a noun-based language. So we kind of tried to split the difference. Here we've got Yojijas, which is the word for Sky Woman. And then we've also got Aseyadegenha, which is help her. And so we tried to balance between words that would emphasize the values that we wanted to share and words that we thought kids would latch on to, words for the animals and the people and the story. This is an example of one of the design challenges. So on this screen, you're supposed to help Yojija spread the dirt. And the Oneida story, traditionally, that goes counterclockwise. And when we do all of our dances, we do our dances counterclockwise. But even with this little hand moving in that direction, still we couldn't get people to do it. And so we ended up changing this so that if you just click anywhere on the screen, it'll advance the circle. You don't actually have to move it in a circle, but that's one of the changes that we came up with in testing. In addition to the narrative, we have these 2 little mini games. So this one is essentially Candy Crush, right? You're trying to match 3 and then you get points and it moves on. Interestingly, I thought that the other one that I'm going to talk about in a second would be the one that would be for kids, and then this one would be for like the older kids and adults. And we tried this one out with the elders, and the elders did not get it. And kind of kept going over there like, oh, so Carol, it works like this. This is how you did it. And the elders did not like this game at all. They liked this one, which I was like, this is just for the preschool kids, right? For the preschool kids and the elders. So this is just simply a memory matching game, right? Like you flip the cards, and then when they match, you get points. This is another example of a symbol that we've put in the game to try to signal that this is for you. So again, that's the Hiawatha belt. That's the symbol of our Confederacy. So that's just a little bit about my game and my work. Yawogo. Thank you very much.
Wow, that is such a fascinating work that you have done. Thank you so much for your passion and commitment to preserving Native language. Now we will switch gears a bit as we sit back, watch and listen a traditional drum and dance performance. Please help me welcome Lorraine and Melissa Guerrero with Indigenous Ace.
Can y'all hear me? Okay. Biwo na pepe, Lore Guerrero nkelekewa, Mima halawa sponi isa nede. What I said in my native language, the Tutelos Pony language, is hello, good day. I am called Lore Guerrero. I come from the Yisa, the Halawasponi people of Hollister, North Carolina, as well as the Nede, the Apache people from Muscalero, New Mexico. And the name of our group is Indigenous ACE, and we're just going to be giving you a brief overview, a quick overview of some of our customs, our dances, our social dances that we do. Hopefully, if you enjoy yourself and you want to get more involved or see it at a deeper level, there is a powwow starting tomorrow up at Durant at Choctaw Casino. They are having a 3-day powwow tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. And if you're not able to make it to that, AT&T is holding a powwow next Saturday at the Discovery District, right in downtown Dallas. So that's next Saturday from 11 to 6 o'clock. So hopefully we spark your interest and want you to, make you want to come out and see this at a grander, bigger scale. So what we're going to do momentarily, real quick, is to kind of introduce you to the focal point of our social gatherings, even our ceremonial gatherings, and that is this thing here, this drum. Now this is a one-man drum. This is known as a hand drum, and you see the size of it. This is actually for our child. This is hers. And then we have a little bit bigger one. So they range in size. And actually, can you hit that one real quick, Melissa? And they range in sound as well. So you hear the sound of that one compared to this one, which is an adult-sized drum. So they sound differently. And what the importance of this drum is two things. The animal that gave its life for this drum. So anytime you ever see us with a drum in a social or ceremonial setting, for instance, if you go to the powwow, you'll see a bigger drum that's sitting like this, and you'll see several men, sometimes 7, 10, 12 men sitting around that drum. And before they will start their program, they put tobacco on that drum, and they sing, they start their song with that tobacco. And what it's doing is giving offering for the animal that gave its life, because it's because of that animal laying it down its life that we're able to carry on our culture and our traditions. Because you have to understand, back in the early 1900s, it was illegal. The federal government deemed it illegal for us to do these things. So we do it out of the fact that we can still do this, even though there was a point when that was not so. My grandfather and my grandmother, who are now deceased, when we were reestablishing our identity because we weren't allowed to be Native American, they used to meet at a place called Sacred Springs. They had to go in hiding just to talk about tribal issues and things involving the tribe. So we had to hide who we are, but yet we were the first people here. So, but I'm gonna just briefly explain and show you, demonstrate the drum, and then we'll get into the dancing. So just bear with me. I am not a singer, by the way, so do not judge me. It's great that you all can laugh, because natives, we love, even though the movies portray us as being these ruthless people, humor is the way that we've survived a lot of our traumas. So I'm gonna sing a verse of 2 songs. The first song is composed entirely of vocables. So there's no words, they're just vocables, just like if you were to hear one of your favorite singers and they're not singing words, they're just kind of harmonizing or whatever. I don't harmonize, so don't expect that. And then the second song I'm gonna sing a verse of is one that has words. It's an Omaha song, and it's discussing or talking about a battle of one of the Omaha warriors looking down on the battlefield. So. The first song with the vocables. This is the the vocables. This is the second song that actually has a language to it. Heard the drum. Whoa, that sounds way better. The beat, we call that the heartbeat. It sounds like your heartbeat because we think that we say that this is the heartbeat of Mother Earth because we believe that the earth is a living being. And if we take care of her, she will take care of us. So if you notice, if you even Google any type of indigenous culture throughout the world, it all comes back to this percussive instrument. Any indigenous culture has a drum, and it's the heartbeat of the earth. So we're gonna get right into the dancing. Let me make sure this is turned on. I'll let Melissa talk about her style while I get us all queued up.
Hi. See if you can hear me. Can you hear me? So my style is known as the jingle dress, for obvious reasons, right? But we're also known as the healing dance. So the way the story goes, and if you were here last year, you've heard the story. There was this style of particular dress comes from up into Canada, Whitefish Bay, Ontario, Canada. There was a little girl that was ill, and of course at that time, modern medicine wasn't in existence, and so they didn't know exactly what she had, but she was fine one day, and the next day she was deathly ill to where she couldn't walk, and she couldn't move anything. And so her grandfather had this vision, and so we strongly believe in these visions where we talk to the Creator, and we pray, and they fast, and we give ourselves up to give us some sort of a guidance. And so that's what the Creator did. They provided guidance, and he said, okay, to heal this little girl, we're going to teach you these things. So what he taught the grandfather was how to make the dress. And then he went on to teach them songs on how to sing the songs for this particular style of dancing. And he's like, I want you to bring her into the longhouse, put it on her, and start singing these songs, and this will heal her. So they did exactly that. They brought her they put her in the dance, and so as they sang, it took some time, but then they noticed movement in her hand, movement in her foot. After singing all night, she started to dance, stand up and dance. So this is where the healing dance comes from. This is still known as a healing dance, but it also was brought into our competitive style, which if you go to a powwow, we are competitive dancers and you will see this particular style. But we also still hold it to that regard of being a medicine dance. So the way that we do this, because they still have jingle dress societies where they bring somebody who's unhealthy. So we take up all our feathers and we have tobacco placed in our hands and we dance around whoever's not feeling well. And even then, even in our competitive atmosphere and powwows and everything, we still hold that in our hearts whenever we do dance. I wasn't originally a jingle dress dancer, but I was given permission to dance the jingle in honor of a young lady. I say young lady, but she had breast cancer. And I was moved because they did hold this ceremony for her. And they were hoping for healing for her, whichever path that took. And unfortunately, cancer won, but she's no longer suffering. So I asked permission from her family to give me that right, so that way she could continue, and the style continues. And that's how our traditions are passed down. This is how our people still live on. So, yeah, so here it is. And I'm a contemporary style jingle dress dancer. So with contemporary style, you'll see the fans, the feather work, the brighter colors, the shiny, the sparkly, whereas old style jingle dress dancers are more traditional, more cotton dresses. They don't wear all the feathers as I do.
And also, as she dances, you'll notice in her hand, her right hand, this is these are golden eagle, mature golden eagle feathers, tail feathers. And by law, us as American Indian people, or Native American indigenous people, we are the only ones that are allowed to legally possess these items. Anyone else that, if you're caught with these in your possession and you don't have a good enough excuse, I guess, you can be prosecuted up to $25,000 per feather and 5 years per feather. So, and as she's dancing, you'll notice that she will she'll put the fan up in the air, and what it's doing, the symbolism and the meaning behind that is, whatever your religious belief may be, whether you read the Bible or any other religious text, we don't have that. We use these because for us, the eagle flies the highest out of all God's creations. So we use these feathers to carry our prayers up to God. See, when before the Europeans came and brought Christianity, we already knew that there was a one single creator. We just didn't have the same name. So we've been aware of a higher being for since existence. So that's what she's doing when she's dancing. She's lifting these prayers up to the Creator. Prayers for healing.
Midnight Special, Friday night, Wild Bet.
All right, thank you for that. The next style that we're going to demonstrate, like I said, this is just a small glimpse into the different styles. We have without having to go through each one, we have approximately about 6, 7 different women's styles. And this ranges in ages from tiny tots, which are those that are 0 to 5 years old, which they don't compete. Everybody's a winner, right? They get like $5 in a candy bag. Yeah, they love the candy. And then it ranges up all the way to what we call golden age or platinum age, which is, generally like 70 plus. So that's what you'll see if you attend a powwow. And then for our men's styles, we have the same. We have about 7 or 8 different styles. So these are just 2 of the styles that you would see. Now this is, like I said, our powwow, our social dances. And so these styles are what are called intertribal. So these styles, you don't necessarily have, like her style comes from the Ojibwe people. You don't necessarily have to be Ojibwe to dance that style. But we always teach our children and those that are going to dance, learn the origins of that style, the meaning of it, where it came from, because if you don't, you lose the purpose of it. So my style is one of the newest. It's the men's fancy war dance. Now, this style came about after we were placed on reservations. You have to understand that a lot of our young men were used to becoming warriors. They were used to going out hunting, preparing for battle, protecting the tribe. And what would happen was you get put on a reservation and you can no longer do these because you have to stay on these 50 acres. You can't go out and look for buffalo. You can't go out and look for deer. So what happened was there was a group of young Ponca boys. They were at their annual powwow, their annual Heloshka, and they went to the drum and they said, "Speed the music up." And the drum was like, "No, we can't do that. That's against the rules." Somehow these boys convinced them to speed the music up, and they started dancing faster. They started doing more intricate high footwork, and it evolved into this. Because traditionally there was only one bustle, which are the feathers that are worn on the back. They added another one to the top. They added the feathers, the bright feathers, to make themselves look and stand out. Just like our professional athletes, they want to. You see track stars that have shiny shoes now. They want to be seen, right? So that's what this style is known as. It's the fastest style. Now, I am not the fastest. I'm 43 years old now. I used to be. But I've tried other styles. I've tried traditional. I've tried grass. I've tried chicken. And all my family is like, you dance too fancy for that. You don't fit that style. So this is my heart. This is my passion. And I've undergone 5 knee surgeries, but this is where my passion lies. So for me, I'm still able to do it even after overcoming these 5 knee surgeries. Now, I'm not going to do the things that you will if you go to the powwow. These younger guys, I'm not doing the splits. I'm not doing cartwheels, okay? So, but this is, and there's more to the story of it, but I know we're pressed for time. So, but feel free to ask more questions afterwards, okay?
Can you hear me now? Sorry about that. I didn't know he turned it off. So that concludes our dancing aspect of it. Do y'all have any questions that we can answer for you guys? So it is sort of like what you could compare to like the rodeo circuit. It is competitive dancing. So we do have a parade of dancers. It's known as the Grand Entry. So all of our dancers will come out during that time behind usually a color guard and our flags and everything. So during that time, once all our dancers are in the arena, we give respect. We do something that's sort of similar to like the national anthem. We have an honor song. We have to pay homage to all the military that have served and have given their life. And then we just have our social dances as well, round dances. And then we go into our competitive aspect. We go in from our tiny tots to kind of getting used to competing. But of course, all of them are winners. They're excited to win candy. And then our golden age, and then all our adult categories.
And there's also craft vendors, so you can go and buy Native American made items as well as food vendors. And we do have crowd participation, so you can come out and dance as well. It's this Friday, so tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday in Durant at Choctaw Casino, and then next Saturday at the AT&T Discovery District in Dallas.
And those are both free events, so yes. Sometimes they charge and sometimes they don't. So, but the 2 events coming up here locally, they don't charge admission fee. Any additional questions?
All right. Well, thank you, Bilahuk, which means thank you in our language. Thank you for having us.
No, thank you. So another big thank you for sharing talent and knowledge and your traditional culture. We now have one last thing we want to share with you as we round out our Native American Heritage Program. Here in Fort Worth, we are so lucky to have so many world class museums and bring some of the very best exhibits to our community. And I would like to welcome Kendall Smith-Lake and Claire Milliken from the Fort Worth Museum of Modern Art to talk about an incredible new exhibit that just opened. Kendall and Claire, welcome very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Claire Milliken. I'm the Assistant Curator at the Modern Art Museum of Fort Worth. And we have the distinct pleasure of having Jean Quick-to-See Smith Memory Map on view currently, and it'll be on view through the new year into January. Jean Quick-to-See Smith is a citizen of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Nations, and she has been an artist, an activist, educator, and curator for over 50 years. And this exhibition really shines a light on those 50 years and what she has achieved. This is the largest and most comprehensive exhibition of Jean Quick-to-See Smith's work to ever be presented. There are over 130 objects in the exhibition, ranging across materials and mediums. Jean is incredibly adept at creating paintings, sculpture, and works on paper, and she really is a research-based artist. She allows for concepts to be at the fore of what she does, and then she chooses what medium best serves to communicate that idea. Her work really delves into a variety of aspects, primarily relationships to nature, indigenous communities, religions, iconography, relationships to nature, but also how the United States government has dealt with indigenous communities and the hardships that they have faced. And much of her work does have a difficult narrative to it, but she always does it with this sense of generosity of sharing knowledge, and she's hoping for conversations to be had in the work. The show offers frameworks to consider contemporary Native American art in a new way that she has initiated, like I said, conversations around land and culture and preservation. And one of the key works in the exhibition is actually the first work on view. It is the Indian Madonna enthroned from 1974. It's this beautiful sculpture that opens the exhibition that she created when she was only 24 years old. She's now 83. But the work really delves into her interest in combining aspects of art history and particularly pop art and Renaissance art even, but with her Native community, with imagery from the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Nations to talk about what topics are of importance to her and to her people and wanting there to be this greater sense of education. She's an incredibly generous person, incredibly knowledgeable, and I think that really does translate in the exhibition, and I hope everyone gets the chance to come and see it. And the exhibition, like I mentioned, is on view now through January, and the museum is open Tuesdays through Sundays, and also we have free Fridays, and our first Friday of the month is always a fun time to be had, and that's this week as well. And if anyone's interested, we do have some tickets and some brochures that my colleague Kendall will be more than happy to share with anybody who's interested in the show. So I'm also happy to take questions. I wanted to just give you a general overview of the exhibition, but I really do hope you can come and enjoy Jean's work and be left with like this really resounding impact that she has. So, anybody? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we thank you, Kendall and Claire. We thank all our presenters and dancers and all the employees who helped plan today's interesting and thought-provoking program. I'd also like to thank the audience for making this time today to help celebrate Native American Heritage Month, and our city leadership for your support is not only this program, but also the Diversity Inclusion Employee Committee and its efforts to promise a greater understanding and appreciation for diversity, inclusiveness throughout the employee population. But before we do depart, does anybody have any questions for any of our presentators who had any
thoughts as the program had proceeded through that you thought about? Okay. So before you all depart, I would like you to ask to complete the program survey. These surveys help us plan and allocate budget for future programs. Should you receive a card with a QR code to the survey when you have checked in, but if you didn't, please make sure you do get one on your way out. And be sure to read the roundup and learn about more opportunities to help plan and attend future programs. Thank you so, oh, one more thing.
Kendall will have the tickets for you. You just kind of meet at the front check-in table with the tickets.
Okay. Thank you all very much.